Hi everybody, Dacob here. Welcome back to the Fashion Bunker. So I was filming my top of the month perfumes for the month of March, and I mentioned that Hypnotic Poison is one of my favorite ones for that month. And then I showed you these two. So I'm back again. I think it warrants a video on its own. I did mention the difference between the vintage formulation and the, the actual formulation that we buy now in stores of Hypnotic Poison Eau de Toilette by Christian Dior. It warrants a video on its own because, I mean, both of them are good. So let's make this a quick one. You could check out the review of Hypnotic Poison Eau de Toilette. I also did the Hypnotic Poison Eau de Parfum review in the description box down below. This is the 150 milliliter bottle. It's the biggest one they make. So I do love it. And I also got one bottle for my mom because she loves it too. But a dear friend of mine gave me a present. Her mom, back in the early 2000s, got a present, Hypnotic Poison gift box with, back in the day when Addict was released, they kind of made these metal little tiny containers for all of the other Dior perfumes as presents for their customers. And inside, when you open it, is a 7.5 milliliter spray vial of Hypnotic Poison Eau de Toilette. And this is all metal. Back in the day, Dior really invested a lot in how their fragrances looked like. Let's just say it that way. I mean, it's amazing. They would do more plastic nowadays, I guess, and this is really cool. Sometimes they still have really good gift boxes, but containers, but this is like heavy duty. It's so heavy, and it only has 7.5 milliliter eau de toilette in there. So I already sprayed it here in my other video, the eau de toilette vintage, and let's say first formulation. And here I have the new batch, the fresh formulation of Hypnotic Poison Eau de Toilette. And what I said already in the other video, I'm repeating here. Let's do everything again because this video is specifically about Hypnotic Poison Eau de Toilette vintage versus new formulation. Very important to note immediately is that the biggest difference between the two is new vintage. The vintage one gives an olfactive feeling of a pointy mountain, like that. The fresher batch and formulation doesn't go pointy up. It kind of tends to be like a hill rather, like it's more like rounded, like that. It doesn't have that edgy, pointy top at the top of the mountain, but it's rather curvy. So it's mellowed down. By that I don't mean necessarily that they've cheapened the formulation. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. We also know that there are new regulations that have to be followed in terms of perfumery. I still love it. But I think the fact that some of you smell out that infamous Play-Doh-y effect or smell within the new formulation of Hypnotic Poison, I think it has to do with some synthetic element in there that cuts off that edge that the original formulation had. And I have to say another thing, as they dry down, because I've had them on for some time now, which is actually a really good thing to do when I'm reviewing perfume, is to have them on for at least like half an hour before I go into it, which I usually don't do because I spray them fresh for you guys. So the vintage formulation tends to become more and more intense as time goes by, and the new formulation becomes a bit blander. It doesn't, you know, that pointiness of the original keeps poking at you all the time, all throughout the dry down as well. The vanilla does kick in very powerfully, and it's a wonderful, intoxicating vanilla. But I think the bitter almond in there is what pokes through that vanilla all the time. Here, the bitter almond has been kind of cut off. It's been rounded off. It's like it's been sanded off, you know. It's not that spiky anymore. And hence it loses that edginess, which I have to say I miss the edginess. It's still okay, you know what I mean? It's there and it's okay, but we smell the difference. And, you know, nobody can tell me, oh, well, you know, Dacob, the vintage bottle is an older bottle, so I don't know, it's gone stale, old, blah, blah, blah. This one has been sealed off from light in the gift box for decades, never opened. This thing has never been sprayed or used before. So at worst or at best, the top notes might be off, but they're not. But the dry down is there. And it's powerful and it's intense and it's an important dry down. This one, it's Hypnotic Poison. It's a Dior fragrance and we smell it. It has that character, but it doesn't have the edginess. That's gone. The edginess that the 90s also had, especially the first half of the 90s. The second half already was mellowing down. And then we lost all the edginess in the 2000s. That was a catastrophe. Then towards the end of the 2000s, we kind of in fashion gained a little bit momentum again. And then we lost it again in the 10s. And right now, I find myself hunting down the really cool pieces that I really, really like are either vintage or from big brands. What I love are pieces that are more kind of leaning on their traditional heritage pieces rather than their more experimental innovations. Which is kind of sad because the experimental innovations should be really cool, but they keep playing it safe, you know, because they really want to make that money. All right, well, my verdict, this one is fine, but of course, re-smelling the original formulation, it makes you go, darn, oh, those were the days, you know. Its heart is still there, but it has been cheapened down, alas. We still love it because we love our Hypnotic Poison. But if you can, hunt down a vintage one. I mean, it doesn't have to be this particular gift metal Dior Addict looking bottle. By the way, this was made to resemble Dior Addict, which is this bottle here. This is not the vintage bottle. The vintage bottle didn't have a stopper kind of to block it. You would twist it open and the little stopper would, you would actually spray it from here. But that's not the case anymore. They changed that as well. But anyway, that's my comparison between Christian Dior's Hypnotic Poison original formulation versus the new actual formulation we have in stores. Dior, if you can, in any way, shape, or form, it needn't be, if it's a money issue, it needn't be a mass-released product. You could, if you want a lot of money for it, you could even charge a lot of money for it, but just like consider bringing back on the market, even in limited form, the original formulation of Hypnotic Poison. It's probably a counterproductive move because then people would ask, well, why don't you just sell that one instead of the one that you're selling? I know, maybe call it a different name. Don't call it Hypnotic Poison Eau de Toilette. Call it Hypnotic Poison Eau de Toilette Extreme, Intense. You know best. You do that all the time. Do something like that, and there you have it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. If you have, please do thumb it up and let me know what you thought about it in the description box down below. And if you haven't already but wish to, please consider subscribing to my channel here on YouTube. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Thank you guys so much for watching. Never give up on vintage love. Love you. See you soon. Take care. Bye.